Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to episode 8 of the Clinic in Your Ears, Clinic for Marching Percussionists. This is Mike, the host of Soundstage EDU. And today, we're going to talk about an old rivalry. And it's not a rivalry, actually. So let me clear this up right now. The pit and the battery are not at war. They're not fighting for space. They're not competing for volume. They are a marriage. And if they don't work together, your show falls apart. So let's talk about what each part does. Not how they do it. I think you already know how. But let's talk about what each voice, each piece of the equation should be doing in your program. So we're going to start at the front. The front line ensemble, the sideline ensemble, the front ensemble, the pit. We all call it different things in different regions, and that's fine. So we're just call it the pit. That's what my wife calls it. That's what I called it growing up. And then at some point we changed the terminology, but that doesn't matter. That's all semantics. The percussion section on the sideline. How about that? That percussion section lays down the harmonic and rhythmic grid of the entire program. They subdivide the pulse. They provide stability in the rhythm. And let's be real, if the pit is sloppy, the battery will always chase. That's why they need to work together in order to find true alignment in the program. So your pit is the front. That's the thing they hear first. Why? Because they're in front. They carry the melody. They carry the rhythmic pulse that the battery supports. They're the whole thing. They control impacts. And nowadays, they also house the electronics. Your synthesizers, your guitars. All of those things are run through that system. So if we don't have a solid rhythmic balance up front, everything going back, because everything else is behind them, is going to lag. And then we go to the battery. Snares, tenors, bass drums. You guys are the voice of percussion. You're the loudest part. The battery is built for projection. You stand backfield, sometimes midfield, and you have to cut through not only all of the brass and winds, you also have to come through the pit in a balanced fashion. The job of the battery is to ride the grid that the pit establishes. Oh, but Mike, how is the battery going to hear the pit when they're standing behind it? That's something that comes alive in a real live clinic when I'm standing in the room with you. That's something that we can visually describe and audibly link up when we're all in the room together. But just trust me on this. The battery rides the grid that the pit establishes. That's why you see many of the large format percussion ensembles, large drum lines, large sideline ensembles. Think BOA bands or Drum Corps International organizations. You'll see them often rehearsing together with the battery right behind the pit. That's how you find that alignment, with a met sitting in the middle of all of them. If the battery tries to lead over the pit, it's going to create chaos. And the problem with that, or the reason that happens, is the battery is almost always far enough behind the pit that there's a time delay. And being able to actually show this to you is really one of those things that requires someone in the room to actually break it down. But if you guys rehearse together, lock in together, get on the same wavelength, when you take it onto the field, that foundation will stand. So we also need to talk about balance between the pit and the battery. Too often, the sideline ensemble is treated like background or decoration or just the pretty sparkly things in the show. When the battery ignores the pit, when the battery takes on this mentality, the whole ensemble loses alignment. So I need you guys to hear me out here and understand that when I say balance is not about volume, which is often what is usually addressed, we need to balance the volume of the two separate ensembles into one ensemble. Balance is not about volume. It's about responsibility. Responsibility to your parts, responsibility to your sectional dynamic, responsibility to the big picture of the show and how it integrates with the rest of the band. And then unified timing. The frontline ensemble is going to drive subdivisions. The battery locks to them. There's a lot of percussion voices going on in a pit. You got rhythm coming from the keyboards, from the woods, from the metals. You've got percussion auxiliary. You may have a drum set. You also have sound effects, synthesizers. They're all locked in with each other, and you need to lock in with them so that there's actual alignment. Every attack, release, and tempo push has to flow downfield. And I know that's a hard one to reconcile in your head when you're thinking just on the physical staging of the ensemble from the field perspective. But that's where the pulse has to flow. That's how it's going to line up. Often you'll see me standing in front of a sideline ensemble and telling them that they need to lock to the battery, that they need to grab their pulse from the battery. And that is the case with a lot of the high school groups because we just lack some rhythmic honesty. We're not quite ready. And just to save the day, sometimes say, hey, lock to the battery, lock to the snares. Find the pulse there. Or find the pulse in the winds. Because we haven't taught the whole ensemble to listen forward. So it's easier to teach the percussionist in the front to listen back. But you can't play clean if the pit and battery are speaking in two different languages. You have different vertical alignments. And this affects the entire ensemble, from brass to woodwinds to even the color guard, because they're relying on pulse from the music. So this one's a little more complicated, and I get that. That's why we kind of took our time talking through it. But just to give some reinforcement, there will be a pit and battery balance guide coming. Nothing's changed. I'm still behind on those, but we'll get to them. But we'll address 3 key fixes to get your sideline and field players working together instead of against each other. That will be available to everybody on the Soundstage EDU Buy Me a Coffee page. And there'll also be an expanded version of that guide for $10. Or if you support us monthly, you'll have access to all of the expanded guides. You won't have to piecemeal them out. But like I said before, that full balance system, that really is something that I can only build in person with your line. Because we need to learn how to align visually as well as audibly. So here's today's takeaways. Stop treating pit and battery like separate worlds. They are one. When they work together, your line sounds 10 times bigger and cleaner. And when they don't, nothing will ever lock. So share this with your pit or your frontline ensemble and your battery section leaders. Follow this podcast so you don't miss tomorrow's drop, and support me on Buy Me a Coffee if you want the expanded versions of these guides. And again, if you want the full marriage counseling, the kind that transforms your ensemble into a single machine, book me for a clinic. Because this is where good shows become great. Thanks for sticking with me through this. We got 2 more to go, guys. 2 more to go. And then this will be archived forever and ever, and you guys can come back and continue listening to these as you need to. Until then, have a great day. Don't forget to practice and make up with your fellow percussionists. Have a great day, everybody.